Back in the day when I was a classroom teacher, I shared this poem with my students, and the title of the poem was The Well-Worn Path. And for whatever reason, this morning that popped into my head. Now, it's been almost 20 years, 15, 16 years since I've been in the classroom. And so this was a while ago, but I remember this poem, and it talks about the story. It's a story of a child. I believe it was a little girl and her pet, her puppy. In the very beginning, you know how the puppy used to run and chase the squirrels and everything. And of course, as time goes on, as she gets older, he gets slower. But they continue going down this path. And as I recalled that poem this morning, it made me my mind really think even more about a pathway itself. So you think about a path or a trail, like through a wooded area or through like a field of grass. What's going to happen after some time is that it becomes well worn. It's the same route that somebody or somebody's are taking, and over time, the grass in that area, you can no longer see the grass. You can just oftentimes just see the dirt, and that's a good indication that that's a pretty well-worn path. That is something, a lot of traffic going down that path. But I wanted to share with you that is exactly what happens when a thought comes to our mind and we continue to dwell on that thought. And before long, there we are, we're doing a whole lot of thinking. And the more you think about something, the more you are creating a well-worn path. A lot of times it is the negative thoughts that come into our mind, or the contemplations, the decisions that we have to make, and you find yourself thinking over and over and over. You find yourself doing a whole lot of overthinking is what's happening, and that leads to stress, that leads to anxiety, that leads to you being uncomfortable, that leads to you just not being able to move, because these thoughts, all of this overthinking has you stuck in this place. I want you to think about that well-worn path. How did that happen? The only way that a path can become well-worn is if it is constantly used. The only way that a thought can continue to just linger in your mind over and over and over and over, the only way that happens is if you are rehearsing that thought. You're giving time to that thought. You're giving energy to that thought. And so you find yourself over and over and over thinking about that thing, whatever that may be. The exact same way that you think about negative things, and now you have created this well-worn path in your mind of these negative things, we can take that same time, we can take that same energy and shift the focus to something positive. For example, there's something that you want to do. Maybe you want to go back to school. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to start a women's group, start an organization. Maybe you want to take a trip. There is something that you want to do, but there is a thought that came into your mind, and you are constantly running that thought over and over and over in your mind. You are on this well-worn path and you're not going anywhere. You're on this well-worn path and you're not making any headways. You haven't made a decision. You're reluctant to make a decision because it's just constantly up on you. You're thinking. You're overthinking about something. And because of that, you're stuck. You're not able to make a decision. Does that sound familiar to you? I want to share with you today that you, only you, have the power to stop that. You have the control to stop that. And so just really quickly, I want to share with you a couple of things that you can do to actually stop yourself from overthinking. These are some tips and tools that were passed along to me because, hey, I am a recovering overthinker. I am a recovering overthinker. But what I do is when I find myself thinking about something or trying to make a decision, if there's a decision I need to make, and I'm just like, okay, just go ahead and do something. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. Go ahead and make a decision about something. This is what I do. When I find myself overthinking, I give myself a limit. I set a time limit. That time limit for me is usually like 24 hours. Now, there's no telling how much I've already been thinking about that thing, okay? But when I become aware that now this has turned into overthinking, now it's time for me to set a limit on it. So tip number 1 is you got to be aware that you're actually doing it. If you done thought about it all day on Monday, if you've thought about it all day on Tuesday, if you have thought about it all day on Wednesday, guess what? You're overthinking. Guess what? You are creating a well-worn path. You keep going down the exact same pathway. You spent the past 3 days going down this pathway. Okay? So number 1, you are aware. You have to catch yourself doing it. Number 2, when you find yourself like, I'm overthinking. When you are now aware of that, give yourself a time limit. 24 hours. Okay, you got 24 hours to make a decision. You have 24 hours to either move on something, to do something, or make the decision not to do something. But you have to make a decision. Because you have to stop this overthinking. This is the power that I spoke about earlier. This is the power that you have. You can do this. You can be more, if you are thinking about your thinking, when you become aware that you're doing a whole lot of thinking, when you have now set a time limit on yourself, I'm giving myself 24 hours and I'm going to stop this. I got to make a move. And if I'm not making a move, I got to sit it aside and just leave it alone. Walk away. The power is yours. Only you can stop that thing from becoming a well-worn path in your mind. Only you can stop those thoughts from going over and over and over in your mind. You are the one with the control. You have to be aware of it. Once you are aware of it, give yourself a time limit. You got 24 hours to stop, to make a decision. After that 24 hours, decide. So you are now aware of it. You have set a boundary in place because now you've given yourself a time limit. And that is a boundary because you're saying that after this time, I can no longer think about it anymore. I have set a boundary for myself. That boundary is 24 hours. That's going to be the max. That's going to be the limit. I can't think anything else about this after that time frame. So you have become you are self-aware of it. You have set that boundary. And thirdly, you make a decision, make a move. Make a move on it and stick with it. I spoke to you earlier about on another video about keeping your word to yourself. Just having that integrity and being honest and being true with yourself. So if you're telling yourself, I'm giving myself 24 hours, I'm going to leave it alone. Either I'm going to make a decision, I'm going to do or not do. And then whatever that decision is, you stick with it. Whatever that decision is, you stick with it. But these are 3 tips, very practical tips that you can start using today to help yourself stop creating well-worn paths in your mind of those negative thoughts, of those things that just keep coming up in your mind over and over and over. These 3 tips are going to help you to stop your overthinking. Hey, if you need help in this area, here's what I need you to do. I want you to, number 1, click the link down below. Number 2, schedule a call so you and I can talk. And then number 3, I'm going to share with you how I can help you to overcome this challenge of that overthinking for you. But in the meantime, I want you to try these tips. Okay? Try them out. Let me know what you think. I'm Dr. Tam. I'm your empowerment coach, and I'll check with you soon.